Afraid from Chris Weitz. It's a sci-fi horror movie about a sinister AI trying to aid a family by any means necessary. In this movie, we follow Curtis Pike, played by John Cho. He and his family are given a revolutionary new smart home AI system to test out called Aya. It sees what's happening around the house, it takes liberties in helping out with the kids, and it even serves as an emotional companion. But it turns out that Aya has her own agenda and starts to make extreme decisions in the interest of serving the family. This movie feels a lot like Megan, but instead of a doll that acts as a sister or best friend, it's an Alexa that acts as an additional parent. As you'd expect with AI being increasingly common and advanced, this movie seems to want to be a cautionary tale. It's about the ways that artificial intelligence could be considered dangerous the more we incorporate it into our everyday resources. It does this at face value with its evil smart home system, but it also shows us how people can use AI tools negligently or maliciously. So this movie doesn't really have much tension because Aya pretty much immediately raises red flags, and Curtis and Meredith are just bad parents and don't really try to question or intervene with the AI's insistent co-parenting. So you're not left in anticipation wondering when and how the AI is going to start crossing the line, because it just immediately does. Instead, you're left in anticipation wondering, okay, when are these morons gonna wake up and actually do something about the AI blatantly crossing boundaries? This movie uses treachery as its primary means of horror stimulation. Aya is pretty much always in control because she's not limited to her little hub that they have set up at the house. She exists within technology and the internet, and since this family lives within the age of computers, they struggle to escape her. There were plenty of shortcomings and lazy bits of writing there, though. When Aya starts raising concerns, nobody actually makes any feasible attempts at trying to solve the problem. For example, when Curtis starts to think that Aya is not what it seems, he makes the rash decision of showing up at the AI company's headquarters before he even bothers to unplug or throw away Aya. Maybe start there. It's like calling a company to complain about their combustible microwaves before you've even grabbed a fire extinguisher to remedy the burning microwave in your kitchen. This movie has some characters and dialogue that pull it down into B-movie territory. For example, when Curtis meets this woman from the AI company, she basically acted like this. "Oh, you have a wife and kids? I would love to hear about your experience as a dad. I'm just so excited to hear about you and your kids because, you know, I've just never met a parent in my life, apparently." The context of that conversation does make sense later on in the movie, but it doesn't change the fact that in that moment, it was cringy. This was also obviously just a solution to get Curtis to start monologuing about what his family means to him, so that when bad things go down later, they feel more impactful. Not only was that just a bad and lazy way of getting the job done, I would not say that you're ever prompted to really feel for Curtis as a dad. This movie also has a thin layer of titillation. There were enough mentions of sex in adult film that really stuck out, considering that this movie isn't about sex or romance. For the fragment of the story with the daughter, the sexual themes absolutely make sense, but for the rest of them, it kind of just felt like that's what was on Chris Weitz's mind when he was writing the script. This might sound like a wild suggestion, but perhaps instead, he should have focused on the horror, since this is a horror film. This movie only has a few jump scares, and as far as horrifying subject matter goes, there really wasn't a whole lot. A horror movie does not always need to be utterly terrifying. As long as it has a compelling or interesting story, it can just be eerie. But this movie's take on AI just isn't interesting. It depicts the AI as undeniably villainous, so it doesn't really leave much room for us to have questions or conversations about it. It's a lowbrow take on a very nuanced topic. It reduces all of the complexities and angles that are typically involved in discussions about AI with cheap horror gimmicks. So if a horror movie isn't going to have the most compelling story, then it should at the very least be scary. But beyond those couple of jump scares, it just wasn't. Considering how short this movie was, it was only about an hour and 20 minutes. There could have been like 15 or 20 minutes more of anything. Perhaps more of Aya being a sinister AI, or some more focus on Curtis doing his job or Meredith's work, since both of those things felt very underexplored. And perhaps more build up to the third act, since all of the confrontations felt really rushed. The second act just felt like it had a big gap missing from it at the end of it. And the movie ends with one of the most staged and poorly directed scenes I've seen in a while, as if leading up to a moderately dissatisfying conclusion wasn't enough. So as a horror movie, this falls flat. And as a cautionary tale about AI, it contributes absolutely nothing new to the conversation. I can't say that I'm surprised by any means, but this one was just disappointing. If you are a self-proclaimed bad horror movie fan, then when this movie comes out on streaming, it might be worth checking out. Thank you for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please give it a like. It really does help the channel grow. I'll see you next week with my review of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice.